All right, good morning everyone. So we're gonna do leg stretches today. There's been so much walking and running and climbing up and down the stairs and gardening and moving. I've heard from clients that they're doing all sorts of really great activities to get outside, and in the process our hips are getting tight. So while strengthening is really fantastic, we need to also make sure that we're stretching and stretching well and keeping in mind our hot spots, kind of our trigger points. I personally have a tight left hip. That's really my thing, so I'm always really conscious about my hip. So for today, you'll need a tennis ball, which I would like to get to towards the end of this video. So have it handy. We're gonna do it towards the end. You'll need a yoga strap or any kind of a firm strap, even a dog leash is great. And then a pillow for your neck comfort. So we're gonna actually start on all fours. I'm just gonna prop my props there. And the all fours position, just an easy quadruped position. If you need extra padding under your knees, you can always double your yoga mat if that gives you extra support, or place a blanket under your knees. First thing we're gonna do is just simply stretch back, and the intention of stretching back is to make space through the gluteals, to make space in the pelvis itself, and to make space in the hip bone where the bone of the thigh bone meets the hip cup. So you want to imagine the bone of the femur heading back into the hip cup, and the hip cup receiving that femur. And throughout this video, we're going to keep referencing that image. So it's not only the muscles that are stretching, it's the bones as they articulate or touch each other that need to be able to make good contact without pain. If you can come all the way down, that's great. If not, only come as low as you can. The other thing we're going to do is flip our feet in two different directions. So right now I've got my toes on the mat. I'm stretching my buttocks backwards, visualizing my sits bones widening and sending the head of my femur deep into my hip cup, and my hip cup receiving the head of my femur. Changing my feet. Exhale. Inhale forward. Exhale back. Inhale forward. Exhale back. Inhale forward. Keep widening your sits bones, the bones that you sit on, widen them away from each other to make more space in the pelvis. And bring it back up. Now we're going to imagine our tail wag to the right side of the mat and angle back towards your right foot and ankle. Inhale up. Wag my tail to the left. Go back. Inhale to the top. Wag to the right. Angle back. So still sitting back towards my heel, but now I'm wagging my tail first and then stretching back. Inhale. 2 more times each side. Inhale. Exhale. Inhale. 1 more time each side. Exhale. I've got, like I mentioned, some tight hip action on my left side. Every time I repeat this, I feel it loosening up inside the joint. Sometimes when we have hip muscle issues, we don't even realize that it's not just external, it's like really deep in the joint. So here you're doing movements that kind of relax inside the joint. Now we're going to do big hip circles. So this is awesome for not only the thighs and the pelvis, but actually the spine, because the spine really attaches, as we know, to that pelvis. And it also needs to stretch kind of in rhythm with this whole pelvis and leg stretch. So this kind of starts to link up the spine, the pelvis, and the thighs as you're circling around. Let's do 3 more. Inhale. Exhale. Inhale. 2 more. Exhale. Inhale. Exhale. Inhale. Let's go the other way. Make them as big or as small as you'd like. Our joint tissues or kind of joint intersections, if you will, we have something called capsular tissue. So the capsule helps to kind of hold the integrity of the joint nice and stable, and muscles interweave with that capsule. So sometimes if our muscle is tight, it actually yanks on and distorts the tautness or the flexibility of the hip capsule, which is really intended to be pretty flexible and yet stable at the same time. Great, so now we're gonna go into a runner's lunge. So you're going to take your right foot forward. I love this stretch because I feel like it's so effective. It works both the glute, it gets a nice glute stretch going. It also reminds me to keep my posture in a nice long aligned position here. And then it also stretches the front of my left hip. So for me, this is like a two-fer or a three-fer or four-fer. There's so many parts that are affected in a positive way by this stretch. So you're gonna breathe in, and as you breathe out, visualize your right kneecap reaching forward with that left heel reaching backwards. And instead of letting your pelvis be turned, actually kind of angle your pubic bone like a compass forward past the front end of your mat, and keep the arrow of that compass pointed forward as you energetically reach the left heel back and that right kneecap forward. 2 more breaths, breathing in, breathing out. 1 more breath. Lots of energy in the back leg, lots of reach, imagining that reach to the front knee. Exhale and bring that down. Okay, so there you can kind of feel your hip capsule. Sometimes the hip flexors and the hip capsule, I'm going to take my socks off, feel very similar, and we kind of can't tell where the capsule ends and the muscle begins when we start involving the area that's closest to the pubic bone and around the hip bone. So you want to, it doesn't matter, right, because both are being affected, but the best thing you can do is really breathe into that space and just start to go for that flexibility in the joint. Okay, so now we're going to put our left foot into the space between our hands, right leg back, same image. Left kneecap goes forward, right heel goes backwards. The center of your body, the center of the compass is pointed forward, so that pubic bone is pointed forward past the front edge of your mat, and you're breathing into the space inside the hip capsule, the muscle fibers, and the joints itself. Breathing in, breathing out. Breathing in, breathing out. Energize through that right heel, making sure that right hip is very much elongating away from the ribs without twisting the pubic bone or the pelvis out of position. 2 more breaths here. And last big breath. Good, and bring that down. All right, so the next thing we're gonna do is a hamstring stretch. So you're gonna lie on your back. This is where if you'd like a pillow, great time to grab it. You can put it under your head. If you don't need a pillow, don't use one. It can kind of alter literally the curvatures of your spine. So if you need a little towel rolled up under your head, you're welcome to do that. But sometimes when we're really, really tight, we need a pillow at first, but then start to notice that, oh yeah, I can actually take that pillow out and find my nice long neutral posture. All right, so I'm reaching my right leg to the sky. I've got my yoga strap or leash, whatever object it is. And I'm really energizing my heel to the ceiling. And I'm going to breathe in, just feeling the huge stretch from the back of my hamstring, past the back of my knee and calf, all the way down, past my Achilles tendon, past the very bottom of my ankle to my heel bone, and all the way through the sole of my right foot. Spread those toes as wide as you can, and notice the energy that you bring to the stretch really enlivens the stretch. All right, so we're going to breathe here 4 big breaths with our foot flexed, heel reaching to the sky. Inhale. Exhale. 3 more breaths. 2 more breaths. Last big breath. Okay, now we're going to take the leg across. If you've had a hip replacement, you are not, it is contraindicated, that's the word I'm looking for you to cross your leg across the midline, so just stay in a vertical position. If you have not had a hip replacement, you are welcome to cross your leg. The position that we want to really kind of stay connected to is our pelvis staying anchored and the leg crossing the midline. So I like to put my right hand on my right hip bone like a weight and press down onto my hip bone. So my hip bone and my butt bone on the right side are really pressing down into the mat. And I maintain that as I go into this gentle crossing the midline hamstring stretch. 2 more breaths here. If this is your tighter side, you know that this is a side that you're more challenged on, focus less on how big the stretch is and more on your alignment, because your body is craving alignment. And now we're going to bring the leg up, and then we're going to open the leg out to the right and stretch it off to the side. So it's going to, again, elongate out to the side without my hip lifting off. So I really want to keep my hip anchored, my left hip bone anchored as I stretch my right inner thigh. Ooh, big inner thigh stretch. Breathing here and kind of visualizing, not even kind of, but actually visualizing my connection from my pubic bone and my inner thigh muscles all the way down past the inside of my knee out through my heel bone. If you're only feeling the stretch in the inner knee, back off the stretch a little bit, go a lot less. You really want to feel it in the meat of the inner thigh, not down at the knee attachment site. 2 more breaths here. And 1 more big breath. Okay, I like to bend my knee and then bring my leg in rather than trying to bring it all the way. Next thing I'd like for us to do is, if we were in yoga, we would call this single leg happy baby. So this is called happy baby. The hip fold that we did a little bit earlier is going to come in handy. So right now you're going to pull your right knee into your right axilla, your right armpit. As you hold your ankle, little by little, instead of forcing it, actually let the tension of your hip socket go. Let the hamstring and glutes relax. Let your quads relax as you gently start to draw your knee, the actual knee cap, in towards your armpit. Then, if you can, you're going to hold the sole of your right foot. And as you hold the sole of your right foot, you angle the sole of the foot to the ceiling. Just that alone intensifies the stretch and opens that whole backside of the hamstring and all the other tissue that attaches there. You're breathing and you're trying to stay level with your pelvis. If you're really tight, your body's going to want to lean to the right, so do the best you can to try to stay level. Give yourself 4 big breaths here, breathing in, breathing out. This is also a great stretch for the lymph nodes. The lymph nodes are part of our flushing of the fluids through our body, right? The lymphatic fluid. So we want to make sure that we get a chance to flush out these little nodes, and then they draw in fresh fluid, fresh healthy fluid. 1 more breath, breathing in. Exhale. Okay, very last stretch on our back here is going to be the figure 4 stretch. So figure 4, as I mentioned before, tends to be kind of the easiest on the hip itself because of the position lying down on our back. Doesn't mean it's an easy stretch. So I'm really feeling, I've been walking every day, sometimes multiple times a day, as I've mentioned. So I really notice the tightness in my hip. It's funny because I actually get tighter walking sometimes than I do running. And I'm not sure why that is. I could probably imagine it, but I don't want to waste the time on the video to talk about that. What I want to focus on is the breath that needs my attention, and that breath needs to go down to my outer right gluteal area that's really, really tight. So there again is a really great example of the hip capsule weaving with the muscle. It's not just the muscle that's tight, but it's also the capsule that is surrounding that joint. So if I focus on relaxing my capsule, and I focus on relaxing the musculature and allowing my thigh bone to enter the cup, my body actually, with that visual, starts to relax. And if you think of a capsule, think of like a cuff around your wrist. Capsular tissue looks like a cuff around the neck of the femur bone. 2 more breaths. Last big breath. Okay, so we're going to bring that down. And just for the moment, stretch your right leg and left leg and notice which leg feels a little more long, a little more anchored, more relaxed. And just take a moment to soak that in. Okay, I lied. We're going to do one more stretch on our back before we go to the other side. Okay, so your leg, your right knee is in towards your chest. It's the same leg that we just stretched. We're going to open our arms out to a T, and we're actually going to cross the whole midline of our body because we're twisting our pelvis over to the left, which is bringing our right side body over to the left side. And here I get a huge stretch, not only in the capsular tissue, but from my low back and actually my mid back. In reality, my whole back, all the way down past my gluteals. Really noticing the stretch around the outer right hip and down the thigh, even in towards my knee. And I'm going to breathe here 4 big breaths. If you want to turn your head to your right, you're welcome to do that. Don't force this. And one modification that's really lovely is if you have a pillow and you're finding like, gosh, it's really hard for me to get all the way over there, you can stack some pillows underneath your under the left side of your mat here so that that right knee has something to land on. Because for some of us, this twist is way too deep, way too hard, and our body isn't totally ready for the full twist. So you can modify it by bringing it up higher, and then little by little over time, you start to reduce the size of that pillow or that yoga block, and your knee comes as close to the floor as possible. Okay, we're going to unwind, and then we're going to do the whole thing on the other side. So the first thing we're going to start with is the hamstring stretch. Go back to the image of the femur bone ball entering a hip cup. So one great image is like a billiard ball entering a huge jar of honey. Right? Something that definitely has some viscosity and some thickness, has its own tension. And you're just going to breathe in and out, letting the weight of that ball drop into that big jar of honey. Flex your foot, spread those toes, and breathing in and out. Breathing in and out. 2 more. Last big breath, breathing in and out. Okay, now we're going to take the leg across just a little bit over to the opposite side. So like I mentioned, this is my tight hip, and where I feel actually a lot of the stretch isn't in my outer hip, but in my inner groin. So on my left side, I must have a lot of capsular tension on the inside of my hip, or there's some kind of misalignment, if you will, that makes that inner thigh want to grab before I'm even able to get to that outer hip stretch. So what I do is I kind of really help to anchor my hip bone down, and then just a little bit cross my midline. I do not go as far as I went over on the right side, and I don't want to expect my body to do that. So I just meet it where it's at. I again visualize that billiard ball dropping into that big vat of honey, that big jar of honey. Think of like a huge mason jar. And just breathing into that space. There it goes. Now it's really releasing. And now I'm sensing all kinds of things. I'm sensing a real kind of tingling or awakening in my pelvic bowl itself on that left side. I'm feeling the inner thigh actually release a little bit. And now I'm actually starting to feel a little bit of that outer thigh stretch. This side I just have to be more patient with. It's got a lot more challenges just because of the misalignment. Okay, now I'm going to open the left leg out to the left, using my breath to help anchor my pelvis, and using my breath to help my body stay really present. So I'm breathing in, tracking the line from my inner pubic bone on the left side all the way down the inner thigh, out through that inner heel. Breathing in and breathing out. I'm giving myself 2 more breaths here. And 1 more breath. All right, and then I bring that all the way in. So the next stretch I'm going to do is the figure 4 stretch. Oh no, wrong. I'm going to hug my knee into my chest. So here we go. We're doing our happy baby. Okay, so I'm going to hold on to my ankle. And if I can't quite reach my ankle, I'm just going to hold on as high on my leg as I can, or I should say as low on my leg as I can, as close to my foot as possible. And then little by little, guide my knee, not right on my rib cage, but to the side of my rib cage. So my kneecap is pointing into my armpit. And I'm breathing in and out. And I keep gently drawing my knee into my my knee into my armpit. And I breathe in and out. And again, here's that big stretch of the hamstring. So I really need to release my glute, and I need to release my thigh as much as I can. Breathing in and out. Couple more breaths here. This is harder than it looks for sure. I definitely, because of my tight side on this left side, I lean to my left, so I really have to work on trying to stay as centered as I can and not let the desire to stretch overpower the alignment of the stretch. 1 more big breath here. This is such a beneficial stretch. Oh my goodness. Good. Okay, so then I'm going to bring my left ankle to my right knee. Here we are back to our figure 4 on this side. And once again, I'm really noticing in my tendency to want to lean over on my left. So I have to center myself, which means almost imagining myself leaning right a little bit. And I breathe here. Another great place to visualize a billiard ball sinking into the big bowl, big jar, huge jar of honey. And I visualize that ball just melting to the bottom slowly. It's kind of swimming in the fluids, but it's a very thick fluid, which really helps to buoy the ball itself while it's also sinking at the same time. 2 more breaths here. So it's kind of gently laying itself down into the hip cup. Last big breath. Good. Okay, so now I am going to straighten my right leg, hug my left knee into my chest, and we're going to cross over across to the right side. So little by little, I come over to my right side, and oh yeah, really feeling the stretch. I'm opening my left arm out to my left and gently turning my head to the left. Not a lot, but just enough to encourage a gentle twist or spiral in my body. And I can really feel this whole waistline and low back also receiving a stretch. If if you're using your hand on your knee, don't apply extra pressure. I don't recommend it, but just let your hand rest on your knee, and just the simple weight of your hand alone could be really beneficial for just the intuitive sinking quality that the stretch is bringing to the body. Two more breaths. And last big breath. Okay. Again, hugging the knee into the chest rather than lifting a straight leg is beneficial. Okay, so we're going to stand up for the very last thing. And I don't know that you can see my face anymore, but actually my face isn't the most important. What is important is to see my feet. And what I want us to do now is just simply roll the bottom of the feet. So we're going to start with the right foot, and I'm going to roll from my big toe to my heel. And we're just slowly, especially if you've been doing a lot of running, make sure if you have any plantar fasciitis symptoms that you are, cleared with your doctor before you do anything like this. But you want to kind of go nice and slow along every toe from the toe ball. And the toe balls are these guys here, not the toe pads where the nails are, but it's down where the actual toe attaches to the joint of the entire rest of the foot. So that's what you want to be stretching, okay? And think of this as a stretch, right? Think of this as kind of rolling yourself out on a foam roller, if you will, giving yourself some of that gentle friction and reminding your body of the elongated lines of the feet, which actually translate all the way up the leg, okay? So I've done my first toe about 3 or 4 times. I did my second toe about 3 or 4 times. Now I'm on my third toe, the middle toe, really elongating it and just applying a little bit of pressure. It should not hurt. It might be sensitive, but it should not hurt in a negative way. Just simple sensitivity is a-okay. If it's burning, back off. And again, if you're concerned about plantar fasciitis, then definitely check in with your PT or your your physician. Okay. I am on my pinky toe side, rolling that out. Last time. Okay, now I'm going to come over to the other side. And I don't know if you can tell, but when I'm rolling from a pretty balanced foot position. In other words, my foot isn't way in front and it's not way behind. If you need to hold on to a wall or something for extra support, you're welcome to do that. And my knee on my support leg is bent as well as my knee on the rolling foot. And second toe. We can actually really ameliorate or make better our muscle relaxation just by rolling our feet. And it actually relaxes the whole body. And we know this when we're at a spa and they're doing our foot massages and they start touching our feet, and next thing I know, I'm just like melting into the massage table or the pedicure seat, right? When I get my nails done. So we know the positive benefits of rolling our feet out. We just don't always take the time to do it. So I really encourage you to do it and bring that sense of flexibility into your entire body. Also the sense of well-being. All right, I'm heading over to my fifth toe side. And last one. All right. So I hope this was beneficial, and do these stretches as often as you can. They're safe to do multiple times a day. Enjoy them with your family and your friends, and I look forward to posting again soon. If you have any questions, text me or email me, and I can address any sort of specific questions that way. Have a wonderful day. Bye, everyone.